The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question to the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is New Year's Eve 2023. Happy New Year to everybody who is not in the United States. So this means Europe, Asia, Africa. I hope everybody is having a happy New Year. And for today's little short video, we're going to basically do a recap of the Russo-Ukrainian War in 2023. Now, as all of you know by now, 2023 was for the most part, uneventful year. For the most part, that is. There were some occasional big bangs, but nothing to get overly excited about. Okay? Now, as all of you know by now, the war in Ukraine in 2023 basically revolved around two topics: Wagner PMC and the Ukrainian summer WOW offensive. To first start off, we got to talk about what Wagner did in Bakhmut, aka Artyomovsk. As all of you know by now, the Russians won the battle for Artyomovsk in May 2023, despite a really strongly persistent armed forces of Ukraine, and also the fact that the Russians were led by a guy who would end up turning on them because, I don't know, maybe he didn't agree with how the war was going, or maybe he changed his mind about the whole conflict. I mean, who knows? I'm, of course, talking about Yevgeny Prigozhin. But yeah, the war was mostly focused on the WOW offensive and Bakhmut. The Russians won the basically nearly 4 to 5 month battle of Bakhmut. They took that. They took most of the flanks, and they're retaking the flanks that they lost in the Ukrainian WOW offensive, and I'm expecting them to strengthen their positions there. But yeah. Now, to talk about the Ukrainian WOW offensive itself, everybody now knows by now that it started in June 2023 with a bang. As you know, the Kakhovka Dam was blown up, in my opinion, by the armed forces of Ukraine. I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing that they did it and not the Russians. And they had big ambitions. They wanted to cut off the land bridge to Crimea and maybe reach Crimea itself. In fact, the guys on Twitter, aka the NAFO gang, were all talking about a summer beach party in Simferopol. They were getting hyped up. They really thought they were going to see Kharkiv 2.0 like last year in 2022. But to everybody's surprise in the West, it didn't happen. Despite the huge amounts of Western equipment that was delivered, both armored vehicles and tanks, heavy weaponry, it didn't matter. The Ukrainian WOW offensive absolutely flopped hard, and now their gains are being reversed. For instance, in Robotyne, the gains that they made in Robotyne are being reversed. Literally, I mean, all the stuff that they made, all the gains that they made throughout the summer WOW offensive are being reversed by Russia. And don't be surprised if during January or even February at the latest, Robotyne is retaken by the Russian armed forces. And who knows, maybe the Russians are going to attempt a counteroffensive to retake the town of Orikhiv, or Orikov in Russian. They gained control of Orikov during the early days of the war, and I just won't be shocked if they end up retaking it, because Ukrainian defenses are having a hard time right now because of the lack of supplies by the Western government. And the EU themselves said that they cannot compensate for the loss of U.S. aid. They just don't have as much supplies as the U.S. does. And with the internal disputes ongoing in the United States over the Mexican border, but also over the question of if Ukraine can deliver a strategic victory over Russia, it's not looking good for the Ukrainians at this moment. Now, with that all being said, let's also talk about Avdiivka. Avdiivka has been another major battleground that has been going on since either late September or early October or so. And Russians have taken at least one neighborhood in Avdiivka, and I am expecting them to take control of Avdiivka in the next couple of months or so. And I am also expecting the Russians to also expand on their gains that they made in Mariinka too. In fact, this month, on Christmas itself, they've taken control of the entire suburb of Mariinka, and I won't be shocked if the Russians somehow, someway are able to find their way back to Ugledar, which they were not able to capture earlier this year, despite their hardest efforts to do so. But, as I said, I am expecting them to try again, and maybe next time they may succeed. People have also been talking about what's been going on in the Kupiansk direction, though I am not expecting anything to happen here for a while. Maybe around spring or summer or so, but I honestly don't expect too much development here in this area for quite an amount of time. Maybe during a WoW offensive or something, but definitely not in winter 2024. I mean, early winter, that is. But yeah, now let's talk about the implications, political implications, that is, of a WoW offensive and how that would change things on the ground. So, as all of you know by now, the Ukrainians attempted their WoW offensive and it flopped, and it all seems all but certain that the Russians are going to attempt a WoW offensive themselves. So now I'm going to talk about basically, I guess maybe the impact a WoW offensive would have, but also how it could play out in Ukraine. Now, first of all, I'm expecting most of the first half of 2024 in Ukraine to be mostly quiet. I think Avdiivka is going to fall. I think Robotyne will fall back to Russia. I am expecting maybe a few more villages or settlements to fall back to Russia, too, in 2024. I mean, I'm expecting most of the first half of 2024 to be quiet, to be boring, just like basically where 2023 left it off. And for those who are wondering what all these dots here or something like that, or these scribbles, it means like this is all the fortified areas within the Donbas. And for these reasons, I don't honestly think that the Russians are going to do a WoW offensive in the Donbas. That's literally just not going to happen. Yeah, I literally just don't think it's possible. You see, the Donbas is like literally the most fortified area in all of Ukraine, and it's been that way since 2014. And there's a reason why the Russians had struggled to advance literally on this blue line here for quite some time now. I mean, the only area where they had any luck was really in the Lugansk Oblast, but that was pretty much it. Everything else, they seem to have fortified everything. And yeah, but that's why I don't think they're going to really focus too much on the Donbas in 2024, at least in the second half. Though I am expecting them to take Chasiv Yar. I mean, that's what I'm expecting. Chasiv Yar, Avdiivka, maybe Ugledar, maybe some more villages or settlements here. Maybe even taking Velika Novosilka. And in Zaporozhye, I think maybe they could retake Orikhiv. But other than that, I just don't expect a WoW offensive from the south. It's more likely they're going to try Chernigov, Sumy, and Kharkiv again, like last year in 2022. But Ukrainians, though, this time around, seem like they're preparing for a scenario. They've been putting up dragon's teeth and digging up trenches. I mean, they know it's coming. It's inevitable. Now that their WoW offensive has failed, they're now on the defensive. At least that's what Zelensky has claimed. And all these talks about another Ukrainian counteroffensive in 2024, I just think it's a complete copium. It's complete fantasy. And I don't think they're going to try again until the Russians try and maybe fail in their WoW offensive again. But I know one thing for sure. 2024 is going to be the year we're going to find out for sure on who's winning this war. Without question. We are going to find out the truth. We're going to get so many answers to our questions. Who will win this war? Who will, I guess, collapse? Who will, like, I don't know, capitulate or something like that? I mean, there's a lot of words to say. But one of the things that you also have to take to account is also the situation in the West politically, because you see the elections in 2024 in the United States are coming up, And Donald Trump has the edge right now. Though with the current ballot bannings he's been getting as of late, maybe he may not even appear on the ballot at all. Who knows? But yeah, there's a lot of things to be looking at in 2024. It's going to be a wild year. Maybe even more wilder than maybe 2016. That year was crazy too. But I'm expecting 2024 to be even crazier. I mean, you got so many wars right now in Gaza, in Ukraine, in Sudan, in Myanmar. Then you got, of course, the situation in Latin America too, with Venezuela and Guyana. Then you also have the U.S. political disputes here between Democrats and Republicans. In fact, Republicans are refusing to give aid to Ukraine until Democrats not only give them what they want for the southern border, but also for basically a strategic plan on how to win the war in Ukraine decisively against Russia. And I honestly don't think Democrats are ever going to give them that plan because I don't think they really have a plan. That WoW offensive was really their last shot, and Ukrainians blew it. And as for the F-16s, because people will mention the F-16s, yeah, they will be there. They will be flying, but I don't really know if there's going to be that many F-16s, and I don't even know if they're going to even show up in time. And even if they do arrive in Ukraine, it may be too little too late by then. The situation is deteriorating so fast that, I mean, literally, the Ukrainians right now are panicking. They're leaving the country more in droves. And Zelensky's talked about 500,000 mobilization, despite the fact Zelensky himself said, as I said in one of my previous videos, they don't have 500,000 men. They can't find any because they all left the country. And Ukraine's population is so, degraded now. It's not even 30 million or so. It's in the 20 millions. Things are not looking good for the Ukrainians. And the way I see it, if the Russian WoW offensive succeeds in 2024, let's say it happens and they succeed, it's going to be the end of Ukraine. The West will give up. They'll negotiate with Russia, maybe renormalize some relations to a certain degree, but not completely. And that will be it. Now, how I think WoW offensive will play out, I think it's going to be another slow meat grinder, and it will take place throughout all of 2024. So maybe all of 2024 will be about left bank Ukraine, not just the Donbas anymore and Zaporozhye and Kherson, but the entire left bank Ukraine. So Chernigov, Sumy, Kharkiv, Poltava, Dnipro, Zaporozhye, the East Kiev suburbs and East Kiev itself. Who knows? But I certainly believe that all of left bank Ukraine is going to be a target for Russia in 2024. It will be. So, yeah, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope all of you have a happy new year to your friends, your families. And I hope to see you all in the next video in 2024. So stay safe, everybody. Don't get drunk. And, yeah, take care. Peace out.